Before we start, please make sure to like this video and hit this subscribe button, so you never miss a story like this. And also comments where you are watching from, how many sons and daughters you have. Thanks.
My name is Margaret, and I'm from Ohio. If there's one thing I've learned in my 61 years of life, it's that family can cut deeper than any stranger ever could. A stranger's words might sting for a moment, but when the betrayal comes from your own flesh and blood, or from the ones you thought would stand beside you, it's like being stabbed with a knife you handed them yourself. Why wasn't I invited, Claire? My voice shook as it echoed across the dining room. The laughter had died down. Everyone had frozen. My daughter-in-law, yes, the very woman I had accepted as my own daughter, stood across from me with a smirk curling at the edges of her lips, her birthday cake still sitting untouched in the center of the table. "You don't belong here, Margaret," Claire shot back, her tone sharp as glass. "This is my day, not yours. You think just because you're his mother, you can insert yourself into everything? Newsflash, your time is over." The words hit me like a slap. My own son, Evan, sat there at the table, silent, his eyes darting between us like a little boy caught between two arguing parents. He didn't say a word. Not a single word. That silence burned more than Claire's cruelty. "You celebrated your birthday without even calling me?" I demanded, my voice breaking, but I refused to let the tears fall. "I waited all day, Claire. All day for a phone call. For an invitation. For some small sign that I still mattered. Do you know what it feels like to sit alone, hour after hour, knowing your family is together and you've been left out like some stranger?" A hush fell over the room. A few of Claire's friends shifted uncomfortably in their seats. But Claire? She just folded her arms and smirked wider, like my pain was entertainment. "You're so dramatic, Margaret," she said, rolling her eyes. "It's not about you. You always make everything about you. This is my birthday, my celebration, my house. You should have just stayed home and spared us all this scene." I could feel the heat rising in my chest, a fire I hadn't let out in years. "Your house?" I snapped, my voice louder than I realized. "The down payment on this house came from me and my savings. I sacrificed my retirement so you and Evan could have a fresh start. And now you have the audacity to look me in the eye and say I don't belong here?" Gasps rippled around the table. Evan finally spoke, but it was barely more than a whisper. "Mom, please, don't do this here. Don't do this here." I turned to him, my heart breaking all over again. "Don't do this here. Evan, she erased me from your lives. I raised you. I bled for you. I gave you everything I had, and now I'm treated like some outsider at my own daughter-in-law's birthday? You should be ashamed." Claire laughed. She actually laughed, high and cruel. "Oh please, Margaret. You think money buys you love? You think because you paid for a few things, you're entitled to control us forever? I don't owe you anything. In fact, if we're being honest, you're the problem. You cling to Evan like you're still the number one woman in his life. Newsflash, you're not. I am. And if that bothers you, maybe it's time you stayed out of the picture altogether." The words cut through me like lightning. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. My knees felt weak, but I steadied myself against the back of a chair. The room was dead silent, all eyes locked on me. "Out of the picture?" I whispered, but my voice gained strength with each word. "Claire, you may have married my son, but you didn't erase me. You didn't erase the years I poured into building this family. You didn't erase the sacrifices I made so that he could grow into the man you were lucky enough to marry. And I'll tell you one thing, you will not erase me now." Claire's face twisted with rage. She grabbed her wine glass and slammed it down so hard that red liquid splashed across the tablecloth. "You're pathetic, Margaret. Living in the past, acting like you're some saint. You're just bitter because I've taken your place." Her words hit a raw nerve, but instead of backing down, I stepped forward, closer to her, my eyes locked onto hers. "Taken my place?" A mother's place can't be stolen, Claire. You might have his hand, but you'll never understand the bond one share with my son. And one day, mark my words, your cruelty will come back to you. You think birthdays and parties define family? Let's see how much they mean when the truth comes out. Her smirk faltered for the first time, and I saw it, the flicker of doubt in her eyes. She knew I wasn't bluffing. She knew I still held something she couldn't control. I turned to the room, my voice rising so everyone could hear. You all sit here and laugh with her, but remember this, the way you treat people in your strongest moments will be remembered in your weakest. Today you may celebrate, Claire. But tomorrow will come for you. I didn't wait for a response. I didn't need one. I lifted my chin, walked past the shocked faces, and left the house with my heart pounding in my chest. And that was the night everything changed. That was the night the mask slipped, and the truth began to spill out. Because what happened next, none of them, not even Claire, could have seen coming. If you think being left out of a birthday party is just a small slight, think again. What came after shook every single person in that room to their core. Stay with me, because you're about to see how betrayal can backfire, and how one overlooked mother can change the entire course of a family with a single decision. When I stepped out of that house, the cool night air hit me like a bucket of water. My hands were trembling, but it wasn't from the cold, it was from the fire that had been burning in my chest ever since I realized I had been left out. All day I had sat by the phone, waiting for a call that never came. All day I told myself, maybe they're planning a surprise, maybe she just forgot to send the message, maybe Evan will call later. But deep down, a mother knows. I knew the silence wasn't an accident, it was deliberate. Claire wanted to make me invisible, and the cruel part was, my own son was letting it happen. I sat in my car, staring at the steering wheel, fighting back the tears that threatened to fall. My reflection in the rearview mirror showed a woman I barely recognized, eyes swollen from holding back too much pain, lips trembling from words that had gone unheard too many times. I had sacrificed so much for Evan. When his father walked out on us, it was me who worked double shifts just to keep food on the table. When he wanted to go to college, it was me who took out a second mortgage so he could chase his dreams. And when he and Claire wanted to buy their first home, it was me who dipped into my retirement fund to give them a chance at a future. All of that, and yet here I was, shut out like some unwanted stranger. I gripped the steering wheel tighter, remembering Claire's smirk, the way she said I didn't belong, like my existence was an inconvenience she had to tolerate. That wasn't just disrespect, it was war. And for the first time in my life, I realized I couldn't keep quiet anymore. I had swallowed my pride too many times, told myself don't cause trouble, don't make Evan choose, just smile and take the scraps of affection you're given. But tonight, in front of everyone, she crossed a line I could never ignore. As I drove home, the words she said kept replaying in my mind. Maybe it's time you stayed out of the picture altogether. Out of the picture. As if I were nothing more than an old photograph she could toss in a drawer. But she had no idea, I was part of the very foundation of that picture. Without me, none of this even existed. And if she thought she could erase me, she was in for a rude awakening. The house felt emptier than usual when I walked in. I dropped my purse on the couch and stood in the dark for a long moment, letting the silence wrap around me. Most people are afraid of silence, but I've lived with it long enough to know it can be powerful. Silence is where pain sharpens into resolve. Silence is where plans are born. And that night, standing in my living room, I made a silent promise to myself, I wasn't going to be erased. The next morning, the phone rang. For a second, my heart leapt, thinking maybe Evan was calling to apologize. But when I looked at the screen, it wasn't him. It was my friend Patricia. She had been at the party too. One of the few faces I trusted. I picked up, and before I could even say hello, her voice came through, thick with anger. Margaret, I don't know how you kept your composure last night. If Claire had spoken to me like that, I would have lost it completely. She humiliated you, and Evan just sat there. Her words stung because they were true. Evan's silence had been the hardest part. He didn't defend me, I whispered, more to myself than to her. Not once. He let her say all those things, and he didn't stop her. That's because she's got him wrapped around her finger, Patricia said sharply. I've seen it, Margaret. She controls everything, what he wears, where he goes, who he talks to. It's like he's not even himself anymore. And the worst part? She thinks she can do the same to you. I closed my eyes, my grip on the phone tightening. She already has, I admitted. He's slipping away from me, Patricia. Piece by piece, year by year, she's been cutting me out of his life. And last night, she made it clear, she's not stopping until I'm gone. There was a pause on the other end, and then Patricia's voice lowered. So what are you going to do? For the first time in years, I let myself speak the truth out loud. I'm going to fight back. That afternoon, I sat at my kitchen table with a notebook and pen. Old habits die hard. I've always believed that when life feels too big, you write it down, piece by piece, until the chaos makes sense. I wrote one word at the top of the page, legacy. Because that's what this was really about. Claire thought she could rewrite my place in this family, but she didn't understand. What I've built, what I've sacrificed, what I've given, it all lives on in Evan, whether she admits it or not. And no matter how much she tried to erase me, she couldn't erase the truth. But truth alone isn't enough. Sometimes, you have to show people what they can't see. And so I began to make a plan. I thought about the money I had given them for the house. I thought about the sacrifices I had made for Evan's education. I thought about every favor, every hour, every dollar I had poured into their lives. Claire wanted me out of the picture. Fine. But first, I was going to remind her that I was the one who painted it in the first place. That evening, Evan finally called. I almost didn't pick up, but a mother's instinct never dies. I pressed the phone to my ear, my heart pounding. Mom, his voice was careful, almost rehearsed. Listen, about last night. Claire feels really bad about how things came out. She didn't mean to upset you. I almost laughed. Didn't mean to upset me? That girl had practically thrown a grenade at me in front of all her friends. Evan, I said slowly, holding back the storm in my chest, are those her words, or yours? There was a pause. Too long of a pause. We just want peace, he finally muttered. Peace. I snapped, the anger spilling out before I could stop it. Evan, peace doesn't come from silencing people. Peace doesn't come from pushing your mother out of your life so your wife can feel more comfortable. Peace comes from respect. And what Claire showed me last night wasn't respect, it was war. And the fact that you stood by and let it happen? My voice cracked, but I forced the words out. That hurt more than anything she said. Mom, please, his voice sounded smaller now, like the little boy I once rocked to sleep after nightmares. I'm just trying to keep everyone happy. You can't keep everyone happy if you're letting one person destroy your family, I whispered. Think about that, Evan. Really think about it. I hung up before he could reply, my heart racing. I knew he'd run straight back to Claire, and she'd twist my words until I was the villain again. But something inside me had shifted. For too long, I had played the role of the quiet, forgiving mother, the one who swallowed her pride just to keep the peace. Not anymore. Because if Claire wanted me out of the picture, she was going to learn the hard way. Sometimes the frame is stronger than the painting inside it. And that was just the beginning. The next few days after that explosive night felt like walking through fog. I went about my routine, watering the plants, tidying up the house, making tea, but everything felt heavier, emptier. Every time my phone buzzed, I reached for it hoping it was Evan, but most times it was just junk mail or a reminder from the pharmacy. When Evan finally did call again, it was never really him I was talking to. I could hear Claire in the background, her voice sharp and commanding, whispering instructions like a puppeteer pulling strings. Mom, Claire thinks maybe we should have some space for a while, he said one morning, his voice low, almost apologetic. Just until things cool down. Space? I repeated, my chest tightening. Evan, you're my son. You don't put space between a mother and her child because your wife snaps her fingers. What has she told you now? That I'm too controlling? That I'm too involved? He sighed, and I could hear the weight in his voice. It's not about taking sides, Mom. It's just, you came into the party and caused a scene. Everyone noticed. I laughed bitterly, the sound hollow even to my own ears. A scene? Evan, the scene was already there the moment I wasn't invited. I didn't cause that, Claire did. She humiliated me in front of your friends. And you let her. He went quiet again. That silence was becoming his new language, not standing up, not defending, just retreating into quiet submission. It broke my heart, because I had raised him to be strong, to speak the truth even when it was hard. Now, it felt like the man I raised was fading into the shadows of a woman who thrived on control. But the more she pushed me out, the more I realized something wasn't adding up. Claire's obsession with erasing me wasn't just about power. It was about fear. I could see it in her eyes that night when I told her the truth would come out, the flicker of panic behind her smirk. She wasn't just trying to control Evan. She was trying to hide something. That thought haunted me as I sat by the window that afternoon, watching the autumn leaves swirl across my lawn. I thought back to the times I had offered Claire kindness, back when she first started dating Evan. I welcomed her, cooked for her, even helped her plan their wedding. She was sweet then, almost shy. But the moment she said, "I do," something changed. It was as if she had crossed some invisible finish line and decided she didn't need to pretend anymore. I leaned back in my chair and whispered to myself, "What are you so afraid of, Claire?" That evening, Patricia stopped by with a casserole. One of those gestures that's about more than food. She sat with me at the table, her sharp eyes studying my face. "She's trying to isolate you," Patricia said firmly. "It's the oldest trick in the book. If she can cut you off, she can control the whole narrative. You'll be the crazy, overbearing mother, and she'll be the victim who has to protect Evan from you." "She's already doing it," I admitted, pushing the casserole around my plate. "Evan barely talks to me without her voice echoing in the background. And now she wants space. What's next? Holidays without me? Grandchildren I'll never see?" Patricia reached across the table and took my hand. "You have to be careful, Margaret. People like Claire don't stop until they get everything they want. But you've got something she doesn't, you've got history, you've got truth. She can lie all she wants, but she can't erase the past." Her words struck a chord in me. History. Truth. That was it. Claire could spin whatever story she wanted, but I had lived the real one. And if she was hiding something, sooner or later, the truth would slip through the cracks. The cracks began to show sooner than I expected. A few days later, I was at the grocery store when I overheard two women chatting near the produce section. They were friends of Claire's. I recognized them from the party. They didn't notice me as they laughed and whispered. "Did you hear what she said at the party?" One of them snickered. "That Margaret gave them the down payment for the house. No wonder Claire doesn't want her around. Who wants their mother-in-law reminding everyone she owns part of their life?" The other woman leaned closer. "Well, that's not even the half of it. I heard Claire's been keeping something from Evan. Something about money." My heart thudded in my chest. I gripped the cart so tightly my knuckles turned white. I wanted to step forward, demand they tell me everything, but I forced myself to stay still, to keep listening. "I don't know the details," the woman continued, "but apparently she hasn't been honest about some debts. Evan doesn't even know the full story." I froze, my mind racing. Debts. Secrets. So that was it. Claire wasn't just trying to push me out because she hated me. She was trying to make sure I didn't get close enough to see what she was hiding. Driving home, I felt a mix of anger and determination I hadn't felt in years. If Claire thought she could keep me silent, she was wrong. I had spent too long being pushed aside, too long swallowing my pain for the sake of peace. But this wasn't just about me anymore. This was about Evan, about his future, about the lies being woven around him while he sat in silence. That night, I pulled out the notebook again and wrote a single sentence: "The truth always finds its way." And I decided that if Claire wanted a silent war, then I was going to fight it in my own way. I wasn't going to scream or beg or plead anymore. I was going to uncover her secrets, piece by piece, until the whole world saw who she really was. The war had begun. When I woke the next morning, I felt different. The fear and helplessness that had weighed me down for days had begun to shift into something sharper. Determination. Claire wanted me out of the picture, but she had made one mistake: she underestimated me. She thought I was too old, too tired, too desperate to fight. But what she didn't realize was that I had built my entire life on fighting battles alone. This was no different. I began with the simplest step: watching. Observation is a weapon people overlook, but it reveals more than words ever could. I started paying attention to every detail whenever I crossed paths with Claire. Her spending habits, her shopping bags, the way she always had something new and flashy to show off on social media. She loved to brag about her designer purses and spa trips, but what struck me most was how quickly things seemed to rotate. One week she'd flaunt a handbag, the next week it was gone. It was the kind of inconsistency I had seen before. People drowning in debt, buying to keep up appearances, selling to cover the holes. The real confirmation came when I stopped by Evan and Claire's house one afternoon, unannounced. My heart hammered as I rang the doorbell, unsure if I'd even be let in. Evan opened the door, surprise flickering across his face. "Mom, you didn't call," he said, his voice low, almost nervous. "I don't need an appointment to see my son," I said firmly, stepping past him before he could object. The living room was immaculate, as always, but I noticed something new: a stack of unopened envelopes shoved hastily into a drawer near the entryway. Claire appeared a moment later, her smile tight. "Margaret." What a surprise. The air between us was icy, but I forced a smile. "I was just in the neighborhood." She nodded, but her eyes betrayed her irritation. "Well, we're a bit busy today. Maybe another time." I cut her off. "I won't stay long." I let my eyes wander around the room, making sure she noticed. And that's when I caught it, one of the envelopes sticking out just far enough to reveal a bold, red stamp across the top. Final notice. Claire must have seen my eyes land on it, because she darted forward and shoved the drawer closed so quickly it rattled. "We don't need to go through our mail with you, Margaret," she snapped, her voice edged with panic. I didn't reply. I didn't need to. The truth was spilling out in her body language, in the way her cheeks flushed, in the sharpness of her movements. She was hiding something big, and she knew I had just seen a glimpse of it. Evan stood awkwardly between us, his shoulders hunched. "Mom, maybe you should." "Evan," I interrupted softly, my eyes never leaving Claire's. "Do you know what's in those envelopes?" His face went pale. He opened his mouth, but Claire cut him off instantly. "Of course he does. We're just handling some things. It's private." I stepped closer, lowering my voice so only the two of them could hear. "Private? Or secret? Because those are two very different things, Claire." For a moment, we stood in silence, our eyes locked like two soldiers on a battlefield. Then she smiled, but it wasn't kind, it was the smile of someone who thought they could still win. "You really need to learn when to stop, Margaret. If you keep digging into things that don't concern you, you're going to regret it." The threat hung in the air like smoke. Evan shifted uncomfortably, but he said nothing. And that silence, his silence, told me everything. He didn't know. He had no idea what she was hiding. I left the house with my head held high, but inside my chest, my heart was pounding like a drum. Claire had drawn her line in the sand, but she didn't realize I was already on the other side. That night, I sat at my desk with my notebook and wrote down everything I'd observed: the shopping patterns, the missing handbags, the unopened envelopes, the final notice stamp. Piece by piece, the puzzle was coming together. Claire was drowning in debt, and Evan was blind to it. She was using him, using me, using everyone around her to prop up her little kingdom of lies. But if there's one thing debt can't hide from, it's paper. And I was going to find the paper trail. The opportunity came sooner than expected. A few days later, Patricia called me with a hushed urgency in her voice. "Margaret, you're not going to believe this. I just ran into someone who works at the bank downtown." She said Claire's been in there constantly, arguing about accounts. Loud enough that people in the lobby could hear her. I felt a chill run down my spine. What kind of accounts? She didn't say everything, but she mentioned something about overdrafts. More than once. My suspicion hardened into certainty. Claire wasn't just careless, she was reckless. And if Evan was tied to those accounts, then his future, his stability, his peace, was at risk. That night, Evan called again. His voice was tense, rushed. "Mom, I need you to stop. Claire says you've been snooping around, asking questions. It's not fair to her." I took a deep breath, steadying my voice. "Evan, listen to me. This isn't about fairness. This is about your life. I saw the notices, I've heard the whispers. Do you even know what's going on with your finances?" He hesitated, and that hesitation was the answer. She handles most of it," he muttered. "She says it's under control." "Under control?" I said sharply. "Evan, control doesn't mean hiding things from the people who will be destroyed if it all falls apart. You're my son, and I will not stand by while someone drags you into ruin. You may not want to see it now, but the truth is staring you in the face. And sooner or later, it's going to explode." He went quiet again, that same heavy silence that had become his shield. Finally, he whispered, "I can't talk about this right now. I'll call you later." The line went dead, and I sat there staring at the phone, my heart aching. He was caught, trapped between love and loyalty, blinded by Claire's manipulation. But I wasn't going to give up. Not this time. Because I knew something he didn't. Lies have a way of unraveling themselves. And Claire's lies were already beginning to fray. The first time I saw fear in Claire's eyes, it wasn't at the party. It wasn't even when I spotted the overdue notices spilling from that drawer. No, the first time I truly saw her fear was the night Evan came to my house alone. He stood on my porch, his hands shoved deep into his pockets, his face pale under the dim porch light. For a moment, he looked like the boy I used to know, not the man beaten down by someone else's control. "Mom," he whispered, his voice hoarse, "tell me the truth. Do you really think Claire's hiding something from me?" I didn't rush to answer. I just opened the door and stepped aside. "Come inside, Evan. You need to sit down." He followed me into the kitchen, his shoulders heavy as he dropped into one of the old wooden chairs. I poured him tea, the same way I had done when he was a boy after school, when he needed comfort. Only this time, the comfort couldn't come from a warm cup. It had to come from the truth. "Son," I began, sitting across from him, "I don't think she's hiding something. I know she is. I've seen the notices. Patricia heard from people at the bank. Claire's drowning in debt, Evan. And she's trying to drag you down with her." His hands clenched around the cup, his knuckles turning white. "She said she had everything under control. That it was just a misunderstanding." "Misunderstandings don't come stamped with final notice," I said firmly. "Evan, listen to me. I don't want to hurt you. I don't want to break your marriage. But I will not stand by and watch my son be destroyed because someone else is too proud, or too selfish, to admit the truth." He stared at me, eyes glassy with a storm of emotions. "If what you're saying is true, why wouldn't she just tell me?" "Because people like Claire don't care about truth," I said softly. "They care about control. And the only way to control you is to keep you in the dark." For a long moment, silence hung heavy between us. Then he whispered, "What do I do?" I reached across the table, covering his hand with mine. You do what you should have done all along. You ask questions. And this time, don't let her distract you with excuses. You deserve honesty. You deserve respect. And if she can't give you that, then maybe it's time to see who she really is. That night marked a shift. For the first time, Evan wasn't just obeying Claire blindly. He was questioning. Doubting. And I knew it was only a matter of time before her mask cracked completely. And it did, sooner than I expected. The very next evening, my phone rang again. But it wasn't Evan's voice I heard. It was Claire's, sharp and venomous. You just couldn't keep your nose out of it, could you, Margaret? I sat up straighter, my grip tightening on the phone. Evan came to me, Claire. He asked me the questions you've been avoiding. That's not me interfering. That's your lies catching up to you. Her laugh was cold, brittle. You think you've won something? You think you've finally turned him against me? You don't know Evan like I do. He's weak. He needs me. And when it comes down to choosing between his wife and his mother, he won't choose you. I closed my eyes, letting her words sting but not pierce. Maybe you're right. Maybe he won't choose me. But one day, Claire, he's going to have to choose the truth. And when that day comes, your lies won't protect you. She slammed the phone down before I could say another word. I sat in the silence for a long while, my heart pounding. Her fury wasn't just anger, it was fear. Fear that her grip on Evan was slipping. Fear that the walls she had built so carefully were beginning to crumble. And I knew then that I had to make my boldest move yet. The following weekend, I invited Evan and Claire to dinner at my house. They were hesitant. I could hear it in Evan's voice when he agreed, and I could imagine the glare Claire shot him as he said the words. But they came. The moment they walked in, I felt the tension. Claire's smile was plastered on, her voice too sweet. Evan's eyes darted nervously, like he was waiting for an explosion. I led them into the dining room, where I had set the table with care, but what sat in the center wasn't food. It was a folder. Thick, heavy, filled with the documents I had been collecting for weeks. What's this? Claire asked, her voice sharp. I looked straight at Evan. This is the truth. Your truth, Evan. The one you've been denied. Bank notices, overdue bills, accounts you never knew existed. I didn't snoop, I listened. And I followed the trail. Evan's hands trembled as he reached for the folder. He opened it slowly, scanning the pages. With every sheet he turned, the color drained from his face. Claire, his voice cracked. What is this? She laughed nervously, reaching for his arm. Baby, it's nothing. Just some mix-ups. You know how banks are. Always sending scary letters over the smallest things. Smallest things? Evan's voice rose, breaking with disbelief. Claire, these aren't small. These are thousands of dollars. This is credit I never even knew we had. How could you keep this from me? Her smile faltered, and for the first time, the mask truly slipped. Because you wouldn't understand. You wouldn't support me the way I needed. I had to do it my way, or we would have been nothing. The words hung in the air, poisonous and raw. Evan dropped the folder onto the table, his shoulders shaking. Do you hear yourself? You've been lying to me. To us. And you've been trying to turn me against my own mother just to keep your lies hidden. Claire's face twisted, desperation seeping into her tone. Don't let her do this to us, Evan. She's trying to ruin our marriage. She's jealous. She can't stand that you've moved on, that you don't need her anymore. I stood then, my voice steady but firm. This isn't about me, Claire. This isn't about jealousy or control. This is about honesty. About trust. And you broke both. Evan doesn't belong to me, but he doesn't belong to you either. He belongs to himself. And he deserves the truth. The room was thick with silence. Evan sat there, staring at the pile of evidence in front of him, his face pale and broken. Claire glared at me, her eyes blazing with hatred. But beneath the rage, I saw it again, that flicker of fear. And in that moment, I knew. The war wasn't over, but the battle had shifted. Claire's mask was cracked, and it was only a matter of time before it shattered completely. Because secrets can only hide in the dark for so long. And I was ready to shine every light I had. The silence after my words at that dinner table stretched so long I could hear the old grandfather clock ticking in the hallway. Evan sat frozen, his hand hovering near the folder, his chest rising and falling in shallow breaths. Claire stood rigid, her jaw clenched, her eyes darting between me and the pile of papers like a trapped animal searching for an escape. Finally, Evan spoke, his voice trembling but louder than I had ever heard in Claire's presence. "How long, Claire? How long have you been lying to me?" Her painted smile flickered, but she tried to hold it. "Evan, baby, don't do this here. Don't let her manipulate you. She's making it seem worse than it is." I leaned forward, my tone low and sharp. "Answer him, Claire. How long?" Her mask cracked. "Fine," she snapped, slamming her hand on the table. "It's been a few years, okay? I had to take care of things the way I knew how. You wouldn't have understood. You never do." Evan recoiled as if she had struck him. "Years?" His voice broke. "Claire, we've been married 5 years. Are you telling me our entire marriage has been a lie?" Her face twisted with fury, her eyes blazing at me. "This is your fault, Margaret. You couldn't stay out of it, could you? You had to dig, to pry, to poison him against me. You hate me because I took your precious boy away from you." I stood, my voice steady but burning with conviction. "You didn't take him, Claire. You manipulated him. You isolated him. And you used his love as a weapon to cover your deceit. That's not marriage, that's control." Evan pushed back his chair, the sound screeching against the wooden floor. He looked at Claire with eyes full of hurt and disbelief. "I trusted you. I defended you against everyone, even my own mother. And all this time, you've been hiding debts, lies, secrets. What else don't I know, Claire?" For the first time, she faltered. Her lips trembled. And then the truth slipped out, bitter and sharp. "You don't know because you couldn't handle it. You're too weak, Evan. You're nothing without me. Without me pulling the strings, you'd still be that lost boy who needed his mommy to hold his hand." The words hit him like a slap. His shoulders crumpled, and he stepped back, his chest heaving. "Enough," he whispered. Then louder, firmer, with a strength I hadn't heard in years, "Enough." Claire flinched, stunned by his sudden force. "I've given you everything," Evan said, his voice shaking with rage and grief. "My trust, my loyalty, my love. And you threw it all away to keep up a lie. You don't get to call me weak. Not anymore. Because for once, I see you for who you really are." The room fell into a heavy, devastating silence. Claire's mouth opened as if to speak, but no words came. Her mask, the one she had worn so perfectly for years, was shattered. And all that was left was a woman desperate to keep control slipping through her fingers. Evan turned to me then, his eyes red but clear. "Mom. I'm sorry. I should have listened. I should have trusted you." I reached out, tears stinging my eyes, and pulled him into my arms. "No, son. You had to find out for yourself. And now you know. That's all that matters." Behind us, Claire's voice cracked with desperation. "Evan, don't do this. Don't walk away. We can fix it, we can start over." But Evan stepped back, shaking his head. "No, Claire. You don't fix a marriage built on lies. You end it." The finality in his voice was like thunder. And Claire knew, in that moment, she had lost. She stormed out, her heels clattering against the floor, the door slamming so hard the walls shook. The sound echoed long after she was gone, leaving nothing but silence and the soft sound of my son's sobs against my shoulder. That night didn't end with celebration. It didn't end with smiles or laughter. But it ended with truth. And truth, no matter how painful, is always the beginning of healing. Weeks later, Evan filed for divorce. Claire tried everything. Begging, threatening, even spreading lies in the community. But the more she spoke, the more people saw through her act. The empire she had built on deception crumbled, and she was left with nothing but her pride, stripped bare for all to see. As for Evan, he began to rebuild, slowly, painfully, but with honesty this time. He came to my house more often, sometimes just to sit in silence, sometimes to share small victories, paying off a debt, finding peace in simple routines. And I was there, as I had always been, not to control, not to interfere, but to love. Because love doesn't hide in the shadows. Love doesn't manipulate or demand silence. Love tells the truth, even when it hurts. And that was the lesson Claire never understood, but Evan finally did. So when people ask me why I fought so hard, why I refused to stay silent, I tell them this: silence protects lies, but truth sets the heart free. And that night, when my daughter-in-law thought she could silence me, she learned the hardest lesson of all: you can bury the truth, but you cannot kill it. Because sooner or later, it always rises.